The bulk of the work was definitely done by him and the other two editors. Close towards the end, he was like, Vix, I want to sit with you and let's watch all 8 episodes. Let's make adjustments, make it feel of a piece. If there's anything aesthetically that's just not sitting well with us. And then I was kind of the guy who was observing it from 30,000 feet. So I was able to start at the beginning and go all the way to the end without ever repeating a B-roll shot, basically tracking score and music, making sure we wasn't using the same needle drops anywhere by accident, and just making it all feel cohesive.
Viks, welcome to Filmmaker U. Exciting to talk to you, having just watched 8 full hours, big hours, by the way. These were not like TV hours. Two of them were in the 40s, but this is like sort of like the Wire length hours, like super dense, 59 minutes and 59-second hours. So I just finished. I'm still spinning a little. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a really big tent you guys built and a lot of moving parts and really wild, amazing to watch. And again, like, I'm a New Yorker. I'd been to that restaurant before it closed, River Cafe, right? Is that what it was before it
I
closed?
believe that's right. That's right. Yeah, the production design is based off River Cafe. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, and I have friends who live in one of these buildings right nearby with a rooftop deck, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, they were there forever," and they,
There you go.
but it
Yeah,
has
well,
a,
thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
yeah, no, I'm very curious to talk to you about this project, but also I think, I we read some notes prior to, and you have a long collaboration with Jason Bateman, and that, I think that relationship fed into how you work together on this particular show. But can you tell me about how you first met and got from there to, what happened here in terms of your collaboration on Black Rabbit?
Absolutely. Jason and I met in 2016 on season one of Ozark. And I was responsible for editing the last 2 episodes of that season, first season that he was directing. Um, did my thing on that show. I was questioning whether do I take a risk or do I not? Do I play it safe in terms of how I put the episode together? It's not really in my nature to follow the script so much, so I kind of took a swing, and I'm like, I'd rather take a swing and potentially be let go, than just offer something safe. And I'm glad I took the swing because he was thrilled with what I did in night on those episodes, and that was really the genesis of the start of our relationship from there, basically. And, I continued with Ozark for the remaining 3 seasons. And then when this came around, he called me late 2023. And he said, I've got something going on. We're going to start working on it in spring. It's all going to be shot in New York. And I want you on board. I want you to come and edit the first two and two other episodes. So that's how it all started. And there's so much. There's a comfort with working with each other. We know each other. We share the same taste and sensibilities, which is huge when you're going to work on something. If we're already kind of gravitating towards the same kind of tasteful shots or the tasteful filmmaking, it's one or two less things that we have to focus on. So we both definitely swim in that same direction.
I am Chad Anderson with Manhattan Edit Workshop, and I am thrilled to introduce you to an introduction to Avid Media Composer. We'll cover all the basics from setting up the software and importing footage to editing, trimming, effects, audio, titles, media management, and everything in between. You'll have access to over 7 hours of self-paced lessons delivered in easy-to-understand segments, all with professional footage that you can download to work along with. And when you're finished with the course, you can use it to keep working or edit something of your own. We're also happy to offer live online office hours that anyone can schedule with me, so we can work out a tricky problem, review concepts, or even have a creative session to evaluate your edit. MuseShop's online introduction to Avid Media Composer is the perfect way to get a hands-on, in-person training experience in a self-paced, on-demand package. I'm Chad Anderson, and I can't wait to help you master Avid Media Composer.
No, that's great. I mean, it's funny because we've talked to a lot of feature editors that work with the same director over many, many films. And, there's no distinction really now between a series like this and a series of films. I mean, this is either like, I guess, either 4 features or, you know,
That's right.
2 P.T. Anderson features, or, but, had he done a lot of directing before Ozark, or was that sort of the beginning?
I think he had, yes, he'd made a couple of films, or maybe a film. I think he made 2 films prior to that, and then he directed a couple of TV projects before that. But
Mhm.
Ozark was, the movies. I think the last movie that he did before Ozark was Family Fang, and then Ozark was the thing that initially he wanted to direct all 10 episodes of the first season, but
Wow.
it's just a logistical nightmare. Like, how do you do that whilst also starring in the show as well? I think we've discussed even on Black Rabbit, he was like, I wanted to do all 8 of Black Rabbit, but it's just too much of an undertaking in terms of prep and being able to pull that off. The maximum I think he could do is 6, he said. So
Mhm.
season 1 of Ozark, he did 4. He did the first 2, set the style and tone, and then was able to push that forward with 9 and 10. And subsequently, in the following seasons, he directed 2. So, Black
Right.
Rabbit, he knew he was only going to do 1 and 2. He knew he was going to be responsible for overseeing the entire project too. And he was interested in me with his producing partner, Michael Costigan, kind of helping him oversee it and kind of having this larger view over the entire series, offering continuity, his taste level, my taste level, etc., and
Mhm.
just making the whole piece feel like a whole.
Yeah, and that's absolutely evident in watching it, and watching it as quickly as I did. You know, are there subtle differences between his direction and Laura Linney's direction and another editor's style? Sure, but I think it all honors a sort of a sort of a theme.
That's right.
And
Does it feel like a movie? It should feel like a 1 hour, an 8 hour movie put together, really,
right.
by in many ways, invisibly by one person, but it's not. It's a collection of filmmakers.
Yeah, and that's if you and he are to some degree setting that tone for all of the other collaborators, then I can understand that, right? Like, and that's the,
Mhm.
I guess my question is, so did you, were you looking at, or the both of you looking at the episodes that you weren't editing and that he wasn't directing and saying, yeah, but the style, we established the style in these first 2. So here, this might have been a violation of that here. Let's make a different choice versus like, I mean, how did that play out?
Yes, we did. That's a very good question. Yes, he was show running the entire piece, so all 8 episodes. So he was responsible, once he finished directing, to produce the rest of them. And he worked largely with the other 2 editors, Cedric Nolan Smith and Kyle Ryder. And then close towards the end, he was like, Vix, I want to sit with you and let's watch all 8 episodes and let's make adjustments, to make it feel of a piece. If there's anything aesthetically that's just not sitting well with us or with you, etc., let's make sure that we rectify that. So yes, it was a combination, but the bulk of the work was definitely done by him and the other 2 editors. And then I was kind of the guy who was observing it from 30,000 feet and staying sharp with that and saying, oh, in episode 1, we did something like this and we used these B-roll shots. So let's not repeat them in episode 3. And let's not, and so on. So I was able to start at the beginning and go all the way to the end without ever repeating a B-roll shot, basically tracking score and music, making sure we wasn't, using the same needle drops anywhere by accident, and just making it all feel cohesive.
Yeah, and it builds too. Some of the B-roll, I remember, I don't know if it was the last or second to last episode. There was a shot of the river with I think the Brooklyn Bridge that
Hmm.
was almost monochromatic,
Yeah. Hmm.
dark, and just
Hmm.
like it really like it's a sort of a devastating piece of B-roll, if that makes sense. Like
That's
it's
right.
it makes a contribution, uh,
Right.
and those choices it seemed like a lot of intent. Uh,
Very, very deliberate. Those were very deliberate on my part because I was tasked with, responsible right at the bitter end with kind of locking all 8 episodes. after Jason and I sat. So it was very deliberately going through each episode, giving a sense of place, also feeding into the drama that we just left, a scene, and deliberately cherry picking what should go where. There's a B-roll shot. The shot that you're mentioning, the monochromatic stuff, it's the set of three shots in episode 8. There's a series of them after the funeral, and when Jake comes back home, and then he takes the tape recorder out. So those were very deliberately chosen. But one of my favorite ones is, I think it's in either in episodes 5 or 6. It's like it's that dusk, and it's just the reflection of the sun. Sorry, it's not sunrise. Sorry, it's just the reflection of the sun just hitting a set of windows, and it just stays constantly, and it's just refracting the light. And I love that going into the next scene when Jake and Vince are taken away by Babbitt and Junior, and they're taken to that like dock area where they basically, the guns pointing to their head. And I love the tension that created just being on that shot for an extended period of time too. So everything was very deliberate for sure.
Yep. I love how you can you have recall to like this 15-second sequence in an 8-hour
That's
build, right?
Yeah.
But that's an editor.
I mean,
right?
less so for the 4 episodes that I didn't do, but
Yeah.
because I did do the B-roll stuff, definitely, I'm very acutely aware of that. But yes, I'm definitely aware of episodes 1 and 2 and 7 and 8, but less so for the other stuff.
But you also bookend the experience as an editor with 1, 2, 7, and 8. And so, I'm not saying what happens in the middle is of lesser importance, but you're also monitoring how that arc builds and how it lands, and the landing's taking place mostly in those 2 episodes. And gosh, what was that? I'm trying to think of, I think it was the beginning of the finale. Because each episode has a little bit of almost like a pre-credit, like a teaser prior to the animation, which I love. That's like they're sort of like filled with little clues, little riddles to sort of decode what you're going to see. But this one
very much Ozark like. You've not seen Ozark, so it's very much
okay.
like
It's
Ozark.
similar. Okay,
It's like Jason's little signature, I would say.
Okay, I'm gonna watch this show now, and it's a bunch of like we want something big because watching Saul and Breaking Bad back to back, it's like that's a giant body of work.
That's right.
It's like we don't want to just like step into little 15 minutes of Tim and Eric now. It's this.
No. Exactly.
But when they sort of like the inspiration for them and them taking off, they're all meeting at that other bar. They haven't even met yet. Some of them.
That's right.
I was like, if that had been at the end of the 8th episode, like that's a very Godfather 2 technique to show a moment before everything was just sort of destroyed. And you chose. Now I don't know how much of this is like, well, the script didn't say to do that, so I didn't, or if there was some sort of flexibility in terms of saying like, I want this to land in a hopeful place, which I think it really strives to do, or I want this to be more of an uncertain feeling with loose ends that aren't tied, but then this moment that we can leave on before all of this happened. I mean, was there any thought to moving that, or is that always meant to be where
it was always scripted to be there, deliberately by Zach and Kate. So, Jason and I played with that scene. There's the moment after Roxy and Jake are in the bathroom, sorry, and they're snorting the coke, and he's like, "Oh, you got to meet my brother. You got to meet my brother." So then the scene that came after, there was a bunch of dialogue in that scene. But Jason and I, as we were working on that, we're like, we don't need any of the dialogue. We know by just playing it with the stroke song and just having a collection of images which shows that they're all in and they're bonded was enough. So you leave on that feeling of like this feeling of warmth and happiness, but then you immediately cut to you're inside the car, basically the B-roll shots right before we get inside the car with Jake being held by Babbitt and Mancuso. So you go from something so warm and like uplifting to something dour and dark. And then it's just tension all the way, if you think about it, until he's rescued by Jake at the plank. I mean, that stretch of about 17 minutes is riddled with so much tension. It's relentless. It's nonstop.
Yeah. It's the music strikes me as very much like a heartbeat. It's
Hmm.
musical, but it's also like rhythmic in that sort of sense where it's like, you've got that your heart is sort of rushing.
Right, and that's interesting. You bring up the music in terms of score, because that's kind of my early discussions with Jason before we started the project was, we talked about 10 score. We're like, whoa, do you want me to track with, 4 seasons of the Ozark library, or do you want me to track with other stuff that Danny and Saundra have done? And we both decided that no, we shouldn't do that, because there's a familiarity with
Mhm.
those pieces. For Jason and I specifically with Ozark, if I was to track with something, we'll be like, oh, that's the scene with, with Marty and Ruth or whatever. So
Mhm.
he kind of sent me on my way, and he's like, I want the score, the 10 score, to have this internal, noisy, abstract, like uncomfortable feel. So I curated a bunch of score from 10 score from sound artists from Europe, and that's
Mhm.
what we tracked all 8 episodes with, just in terms of temp stuff.
Yeah.
And all the temps have this really uh, noisy texture to it. Like if you think of Aphex Twin or Portishead, or it's just noise. And then when you layer that stuff on top of each other, it's very internal. It makes you feel anxious.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you picked up on that. And then Danny and Saundra did their thing, and they kind of, you know, just elevated with the guide of the 10 score. They elevated the whole show with their unique signature of scoring the entire piece.
Which also makes it feel like one big piece also, right?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
sensational. They're wonderful, both of them.
Right. It's always like, when you hear a needle drop that that's definitive from another film or something you've seen,
Hmm.
it's just like, no, that's
It
from that
takes
other
you out.
movie. You
It
can't,
takes
it
you.
totally
It
pulls
majorly
you
takes
out.
you out.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I can't hear the second half of Layla ever
Right.
anymore. Right. It's just I see people hanging in the back of a freezer truck. Like I just
Yeah.
can't um, but that's the power. Music has such a power that way, right? You hear that thing and it's like, your brain just rockets to that
That's
memory.
right. That's right.
Um, yeah, no, it's really it's really kind of an amazing. It's a big tent you built. Like that's sort of like what I'm getting at. It's like you're planting these seeds at the beginning of them because I wasn't sure exactly how famous they were at the beginning.
Right.
I'm not sure
Right.
what to make of them. They were brothers. They you see like this black and white video, but that may not have been like a real produced thing, more of like they shot it on their own and sort of placing them in time also in terms of
Hmm.
where they were and when they were growing up in New York, what it meant to be
Hmm.
kind of in that scene. But I knew he had a famous friend and how does he, what is his name? It's not
Wes. Wes.
Wes. Like
Hmm.
how does that, obviously he's part of some scene of something. Um,
Right.
and I've spent the last 30 some odd years here. So,
Right.
there are people like that who are like,
Hmm.
they're always players and they might not be playing in the same sandbox anymore, but they're players
Right.
and they,
I think I am not 100% sure on this, but I think loosely the whole series is based off a restaurant in New York back in the early 2000s called the Spotted Pig.
oh,
So I've
sure.
never
Okay.
so if you're familiar with New York, and if that's something you're familiar with, then maybe there's like they used to have this room, a private room where the likes of Kanye and Jay-Z used to
Mhm.
smooth that. So I think that's the texture and the idea behind it by Zach
Mhm.
and Kate was loosely based around the Spotted Pig, because they're both from New York too. Zach and Kate are. So
Okay.
there's a specificity to that.
This definitely feels like it knows what it's doing and where it's rooted.
Hmm.
Um, it's it was great to see a New York that looked like, you know, taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 era New York, right? Like
Right.
more than it looked like Wall Street or something, more glossy and current. Uh,
Yeah. Well, and that's testament to Jason and Igor for creating that look and using, this thing called live grain to give it this dirty filmmaking quality to
mhm.
it. And then you gotta give credit to Justin Kurzel, who shot episode 7 and 8. I mean, he captured New York. with our characters in the city running and gunning. And
I know.
that's there's shots which you've got the Jaguar on the bridge pulling back, and you're like, holy moly, that's just it's huge, because it's almost like the city's suffocating them too. You're just like
Mhm.
they're stuck in the city and there's no way out, and they land in Chinatown, and again, it's the city, like the walls are closing in, and you feel that tension and anxiety in the Chinatown scene specifically when they're in the car and all the honking's going on. You feel the tension with Vince stuck there. There's no way out. I mean, there's just isn't a way out.
Have you ever driven in Chinatown? It's
I've not driven in
it
China.
is just like that. I mean,
Is
there's
it? There you go.
uh,
So that's great,
I used to live in Little Italy, which is
Right.
mostly absorbed by Chinatown. But yeah, it's just if there's a truck, that's it. You're done.
Really?
Might
So
as well
they
get out of.
they captured it pretty well then. That's awesome.
I wanted to ask you specifically about those brothers, those actors, because in terms of you having an abundance of performance selection, their willingness, ability, and I guess directive to improvise versus stay on script, and Jude Law playing a street tough American guy from where is he from? They're from Coney Island area. Is that
I
right?
think well that's the idea that they grew up in Coney Island. That's right.
Right. So, how did he come up as a choice for essentially the co-lead? And then what was their rapport like? Because you can see it on screen, but like, were they ad-libbing? It seems like Bateman isn't always on script. Some of the moments I feel like are the most sort of subtle, are ones where he's just taking it and running with it.
You're very sharp, Josh. You're very sharp. Yeah, he's not. He's definitely doesn't, stay on script in terms of the ad libbing. But let me quickly go back.
Mm.
I think the project initially came to Jude initially because Jude had worked with Zach and Kate on their previous movie, The Order. And then they folded in Jason because Zach and Kate wanted Jason to direct it, and that's the only person they wanted. So that's how the kind of marriage came together. And then I'm not sure about the specifics of how each character wanted to play, who was going to play Jake and who was going to play Vince. But it was interesting for Jason to play Vince because it's a character he's never played. He's played the other side, very
Yeah.
much so in Ozark. You kind of get more of the Jake kind of character from
Okay. Okay.
Jason. So that's kind of where that came about. And then just remind me, his second question was, the ad libbing. So,
Yeah.
so yes, it is never a challenge to edit Jason and Jude. They are just, I mean, they're just incredible as performers. So, and they feed off each other in terms of the ad libbing. So there is a lot of ad libbing. So the challenge for myself and even for the other editors is like, how much do you want to use of this? And I think stepping back now and observing the entire series, I'm glad we used a lot of it because I think it gives a little bit of comic relief, or it gives a little bit of a relief from the anxiety and tension that the show has baked into there. Because if not, you have these episodes and you have these scenes which are just so tense that I don't know how much the audience can take. So I think when you have a moment to laugh, I think it helps. It allows you to take a breath, and like one of my favorite moments is when he's being chased by Babbitt and Junior through the underground casino, and he gets to the elevator, and then he gets in the elevator, and then they've got him, and then the elevator door dings, and it's the cleaner, and he goes, I'll meet you on one, my friend. It's like, and he says to the guy, which is just, it's hilarious, and it breaks that tension for all of 5 to 7 seconds,
Mm.
and then we're back into it again. So it kind of also grounds you, it makes it feel real.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about that exact same scene, but the part where they can't get through is Pinky.
Yes, yeah, you're
It's
hitting bone, you're hitting the bone, yeah.
it's like,
Oh my God.
yeah.
We had an early cut of that where, well, my cut of it, initial cut, and it was so much more gruesome. Like I definitely embellished it. And Jason showed it to some of his friends and they couldn't watch it. They just had to they had to close their eyes. So he came back and he goes, Viks, I think we have to re-edit the scene. And
Mm.
I said, yes, but let's not play it too safe. I go, the fact that people reacted that way was testament to what you're doing and testament to the filmmaking and what we're doing because people are invested. So I said,
Yeah.
let's take him to that place. Of course, we pulled back on there, but we had to make it feel graphic intense
Mhm.
because then it feels real. So there was definitely a gorier version of that scene, which nobody will ever see. But anyway, that one's in there.
Well, it'll be on the extra features or something,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
No, it's there was this, there I'm not gonna call it levity because it's not. But I think it's also he emits something, Jason, that is inherently not what his character there's actually it's stated very well by Jude Law, which is you're a good person. He keeps telling him you're not a like right in episode 8, I think he's drilling that into him.
Yeah, that scene. I know
There
scene
is
you're
a
talking about.
goodness that I think it's inescapable. It's in his eyes. It's something
Yes.
about he couldn't, he's obviously looks the part, he plays the part, but there is an inherent, and I think it helps sympathize with him because there is a kindness in him that's just baked into his eyes.
Yeah, I mean, when you go back and you watch like the trauma that he's lived with, the fact that he's the one who is responsible for killing his father, and you see that in episode 7, and that scene is, I mean, it's difficult to watch that scene,
Mm,
but you feel like what the audience and my takeaway from that scene is like poor Vince, like and he's been living with that baggage for, let's say, 40
mhm.
40 odd years, 40 plus years, and also living with the baggage that his what he thought that his brother didn't know about that, but his brother knew all along.
Right.
So Jake saying to me, "You're a good person. You're a good person," is trying to take him, pull him off the ledge in many ways. Yet he doesn't realize that he's going to go up there and commit suicide. So
Yeah. Well,
pretty sad.
very interesting sequence of scenes because you're indicating to some degree
Hmm.
that he's made up his mind on the bridge, right? Like there's something going on, and a lot of
Yeah,
it's nonverbal. I mean,
that's
yes, some
right.
of it's verbal, trash, I'm bad, blah blah blah, but there's some of the stuff, and there's actually through the whole series, there's like even in the first thing, you don't know what you're looking at Jude Law for so long for. At that very
Right.
beginning scene where he like lights up the matches thinking that the thing is off. We have no idea
Hmm.
what that is.
Hmm.
But you're just like completely absorbed in that look because it's a question mark.
That's
And
right.
when
That's
you
right.
see it again restaged, it's like this is this is like the moment of like it's over. I can
Hmm.
truly celebrate because we got the money from the insurance. We're gonna like they called off the thing, like everything's right, like we might
Hmm.
finally be out of this. um,
Hmm.
there's a lot of work of just observing, which
A
in
lot of
TV,
breadcrumbs.
TV is all blah 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 blah, right? It's like so much of it
Yeah.
has to be spoken.
Hmm.
Yeah, you leave a lot of breadcrumbs in
Hmm.
just people processing,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So I
I mean,
wasn't.
you think about it so you've got, it's fascinating. You caught all the breadcrumbs, and there's probably more that you would catch if you were to watch it again. Um, but there's even a line at the end of it, close to the end of episode 2, where he says to Jake in the apartment at night, he goes, "Oh, or I'll eat a gun," which is
Yeah.
then, kind of going to the place of like, is it foreshadowing what's coming? You don't, we know, like I know because I know what the end was going to be, but it's like,
Mhm.
and then I stay on that shot for a long time. Like I stay on that look from him, after Jake gets up and he goes, "Who's going to clean up that fucking mess?" And he
Right.
walks off, and then I stay with Vince, and I do something with the sound, which is the score takes over, and then the series of shots afterwards are just all in silence because I really want you as an audience to really live with the last sentiment from Vince,
Mhm.
basically foreshadowing what's going to come. And you may catch it, you may not, but that's not the point. It's just heavy, heavy emotional baggage. But
Right.
there's a lot of breadcrumbs, and then, as you say, when they get to the Black Rabbit in the VIP room, when he comes in there, it's loaded. He's seeing the horrors of his actions, looking around the room, and I think in that moment, or maybe in the car in Chinatown, it's close to where I think he's starting to make the decision that there's no way out of this. This is,
Mhm.
you know, I'm never going to be a free man. But specifically when he comes into the Black Rabbit, he's like, this is it. And I think he's made his decision that he's going to kill himself. And you see little glances of him looking up, and even when he grabs the phone near the end, he takes a little look up to the top floor. And those are little clues. They're totally very subtle clues, fantastically performed by Jason. Um, and if you catch it, great. If you don't, that's okay too, because I think hopefully it was enough of a surprise that, the fact that he commits suicide in an effort to, make his brother's life better and give him a life.
Right. No, unmoor them, right? He's the anchor,
That's right.
and he's sort of and I think that's, and like I think it might be a little oversimplified. I wish you had another episode to show me what happens after,
Right.
because I think it is a little neatly wrapped up for them,
Right.
and I know there's consequences for Jake. There had to
Yes.
have been,
Yes.
but the impression and maybe you can lead me through it, is that like, yes, there's more to it of what happened beyond that, but in essence, he released everyone in his orbit
Mhm.
essentially from the chaos. But what was so, because that's a balancing act, and you obviously have to wrap things up. So how did you decide how you were going to finish with the song that is the title of the episode, and the glimpses that we see of, whether it's, the artist getting his comeuppance, or,
Mhm.
the different characters sort of in the different stations. But how did you guys engineer that, and what was the decision making behind kind of your wrap up?
When it came to the wrap up, it was interesting because the Dinah Washington song, the Manhattan song, was always something that was going to be the end. That was something very clearly. Jason said to me, "I want this song to be the final thing at the end." And having Rhea performing one of her songs in earlier on in episode 3, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a through line there a little bit. But the writers, they wrote the wrap up the way they did, but I think Justin did, a lot of credit has to go to Justin to capturing the end, which is we need to pull Jake back up from being at his lowest low, right? His brother's just committed suicide. He's hit rock bottom, and so we take him to that journey. We take him. Sorry, not to the journey, but we take him down there. We have the funeral of his brother. He's buried,
Mhm.
etc. And then you want a glimmer of hope, and that's what the end should should be and should feel like, which is everybody's moved on. New York's still New York, so
Mhm.
it's a little goodbye farewell to New York on top of the goodbye to Vince, but also it's lifting up Jake and basically telling the audience like, look, my life's moved on. I now have a simpler life. I don't have my Jaguar. I don't have a fancy apartment. I don't have you know the thrills of owning a restaurant. I'm going back to my roots and just being a bartender, and I'm enjoying my time with Hunter. Um,
Mhm.
and all the other characters have kind of moved on as well, and they're all setting up individually their future. So
Sure.
it was initially curated and crafted by Zach and Kate on the page, but I think Justin really captured some stunning images to help tell that story.
Yeah. No, and well, it's also how you distribute as an editor, you
Hmm.
have to distribute those in the right way, with the right rhythm, with the right, sense of, you know, I think it's more than a glimmer, and
Yes.
believe me, I'm an optimist. I'm not faulting the series for being overly optimistic at the end
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
it's not like Mean Streets where the New York just draws the shades and says off, like,
right, right.
it's
But you have
certainly.
to like there's a as you said you have to end with you have to end with, it has to be hopeful at the end. And for me specifically, not knowing how it was going to be received by Jason, when I put the whole thing together and I'm sat in the room and we get to the end and I turn around, my room's just there's just the one lamp, and I'm like, what, how's this going to be? And he turned around to me and he's got like a tear, or his eyes are tearing up. I'm like, I think we did okay. I think I did okay there because I knew that we landed it, and and he was proud. Like Jason's proud of of the show and the work he did, and proud of everybody involved. because it takes a village to make a series like this or any series, you know. And I think all the moving pieces came together pretty well.
Right.
Right.
It feels like a family came together to make this in a way, because there's a family that we're looking at in here. It just, there's something very closed loop about, you know, what you guys all did.
Right.
And look, I'm sure, yes, at the end of the day, you want to get the views and the subscribers and whatever Netflix's metrics are for whatever.
Right.
But if you do this, you have to be process driven too, right?
Well, yes, we have to. Of course, we have to. We have to make what we believe is something that we would want to watch, and we have to make it tasteful. You know, taste is still subjective, but you know, I mean, we want to make something which is sophisticated, and that's something that commands your attention. You know, and you
Mhm.
picked up on all the breadcrumbs, you picked up on the aesthetic, you picked up on the taste, the music, all of it, and that's the exciting part, and that's the discussions that we all want to have, like when you're making something. You know,
Right.
because if it's just vanilla, it's vanilla, and you're going to be half the time you're going to spend your time on your phone or your tablet, you know. But if you're
Right.
invested, you're going to watch, you know. And it's just even simply going back to that little conversation I told you about in the elevator, where we made it so gory. And I said to Jason, no, no, that's great. I go, we've hooked the audience. The audience is paying attention. So
Mhm.
let's not make it too safe. Let's still stay there. Obviously, let's pull it back, but the audience is invested, and that's the best place we want them to be.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, that's, look, that's what you hope for. And you have to be your own barometer, right?
That's right.
That's, you're counting on
Totally.
your sensibilities and your taste. And if it, look, if I'm sold, chances are that certain people, right, are also going to buy into this. But you
That's right.
never really,
That's
you
right.
don't know. There's no, you know, there have been shows that
Okay.
have been incredibly well done things and just like psh, this tumbleweeds. No one,
That's
you know,
right. That's right. It's not for everybody, you know, like it's riddled with anxiety and tension, as we talked
mm,
about, specifically anxiety, which is, you know, kind of the feeling that Jason wanted to go with or go for when we initially started the project. He
mm,
specifically said, I want 10 to 15% of the feeling of Uncut Gems, you know, the Safdie brothers. So
right,
I
right.
think we got a little bit of it.
Well, going into the Diamond District certainly helps
I love
there.
that episode. I love that episode. And I love, again, the banter and the ad-libs that, you know,
Mhm.
he has with Jaime as well, you know. It's
That's
riddled
not
with
his
tension.
name, Vix. That is not his name.
Yeah, yeah. So
No,
it's
great
fun.
tension and great smarts too. Like there are many, many moments where you realize he has got, you know, surplus of street smarts. That,
Mhm.
and one being like he knows he's like that he's spreading this out, that he's,
That's
you
right.
know, but there's he's, you know, or when he is or isn't intimidated.
Mhm.
Like his sort of thing where I'm like going like, oh, I guess he knows that if they do anything to him, they're not going to get this or something. There's like, I'm sort of like trying to catch up with his process, which
Mhm.
is very credibly street. So, you know, but except for
Yeah, he is.
the hair makes me want to go and watch Two Lane Blacktop over and over again. Do you know James Taylor from that era with the same
I
exact haircut?
I don't know. So I'll look at some images for that for sure. It took
There's a,
Jason a long time. It took him it was about 9 months to grow that hair and that beard is about 8 to 9 months.
sure.
Yeah, and it was a bit. I mean, he'd come to the cutting room when we were doing his director's cuts on 1 and 2 on the weekends, and it was just this big scraggy beard, you know, and his hair's all like floppy. But hey, testament to him, he's got hair, you know.
He's got hair, right?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Is he in his 50s?
Oh yeah, I think he's probably like mid 50s. I would
Yeah, like,
guess.
I mean, if I had that hair, I would do the same. But I will tell you, if you haven't seen Two Lane Blacktop, it's an old Monty Hellman film.
I'm going to check it
Uh,
out. Yeah.
it's so like, you know, James Taylor utters maybe 10 words in the whole thing. It's very much a story of images, but it's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
the way I like Terrence Stamp. Warren Oates is one of my heroes
Right,
of
right,
character
right.
actors, and he plays a great character in that. But the hair immediately, I was just like, oh my God, he's like a mix between James Taylor and like Shaggy from Scooby
Yeah,
the
it's
V-Neck.
so fun. And then they, you know, both of them and Jason specifically cut his hair for their music video. That was the last scene of the entire
Mhm.
shoot,
He
shot on
worked
the last
backwards,
day.
right? Like, did you
Yeah,
he sort of like decreased it, like sort of as they had to shoot the flashbacks?
that's right. So, you know, then you've got the last couple of scenes was the opening of episode 2 with the the mustache, etc.
Yeah.
And when they're going around the empty Black Rabbit, and then there's a couple of other flashback scenes. Oh, the top of episode 8 in the bar. And
Mhm.
then the last scene of the entire shoot was the music video because he completely gets rid of it all, try to look younger,
Right.
and Jude's got his wig on, and there they are performing. And
Mhm.
I really enjoy cutting that too. Truthfully, it's just something simple, but going kind of offering like the 90s vibe music video. It was fun, with some dissolves, etc. And
Mhm.
it was a clever idea on Jason's part.
Curious about creating high-quality YouTube videos? Enroll in video editing and production classes at Manhattan Edit Workshop to sharpen your skills and turn a hobby into a career. Start your journey to becoming a pro today. Yeah, well, it's a taste of what they were. I think that, well, this is maybe just me not noticing or noticing. Was Adam Yauch framed in a picture on his apartment wall from the Beastie Boys? There was a framed picture
Probably.
on the
Yeah.
entryway, and I don't know what the significance of that is. Maybe you can find out. I don't know if there's any at all, but that era, I guess, right,
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
that music,
Yeah.
because that's right when I moved to New York in '93, and that
Right.
was really like that whole scene was
Yeah.
completely taking over.
Yeah. And then you had Albert Hammond wrote the 2 songs to that song and the one up in their loft
Mhm.
at it. So Jude performed that song by Albert Hammond for just specifically for the show. And
Right.
Albert Hammond's in episode 5 or 6, I can't remember, in the bar. That's Albert Hammond in there from the Strokes in the bar,
That's so
talking
funny.
to the female actress. Yeah.
Yep. Well, it's nice to see a recognizable New York. It does not. It doesn't play like that anymore.
Right.
It's it's a little too high rent.
Right, right. No, I'm glad. I think they did a wonderful job of capturing it, and I think, on this end, I was able to cherry pick some of the tasteful images. Not and again, using shots which are not so high rent in terms of using the
Mhm.
images which the scaffoldings and just the dirty messy stuff on top of some of
Mhm.
the pretty shots, and what do you call good looking or pretty, it's like it's all subjective. So I
Mhm.
was just trying to find images which offered told a little story, a sense of place, put us in a specific place in New York, but also the feeling that we're going into a scene or the feeling that we've just left. How do I kind of continue that with the selection of B-roll shots?
Yeah, and then I've seen there are a lot of things where like you'll cut in the middle of a snap zoom, in traffic, or I
Right.
think, and I don't know if my internet was dropping out. It seemed the only thing to me that seemed uh, to pull, well, I was gonna pull me out. I was wondering if my internet was going down. So in that sense, I was. But when Wes is being broken up with,
Uh-huh.
is the sync slipped for a portion of
Very
those?
deliberate. Totally deliberate.
So it is okay because I've done that as a technique as an editor before,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a tough sell, but in that
Mm-hmm.
intense moment,
Mm-hmm.
obviously the fractured way that he's jump cut, the way that a
Right.
word is being spoken, but it's preceding, you're
Yeah.
seeing the thing he's saying after with the look that's happening is like you're really in his head.
Yeah. Cedric says so. That's Cedric Nolan Smith's episode I want to say 5, I think, but it's the breakup. And again, I think Cedric did such a stellar job of that in terms of rooting you into Wes's point of view, getting that noise. Like if somebody was to just drop a bombshell, piece of information on you right now, your head would be spinning. And I think that's what Cedric
Mhm.
and Jason were going for. And I think it's interesting to do that, right? To kind of go non-linear, nuclear with the dialogue and picture. And it's yeah, I thought it was very effective when I watched it.
Yeah, it will literally knocks you out of sync.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it
Exactly,
works
exactly.
on like a bunch of levels. I'm glad it was intentional, but I could tell like it was like sometimes it's low res and I'm like, oh shit, here goes the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But it
No.
was not that. That's good. That's I was a big fan of Sarah Flack's work with the Limey.
Yes, that limey, yeah, yeah,
Really beautiful
beautiful
work.
work, yeah,
And so to see that isn't like I'm certainly not going, that's a mistake. I'm like, that's you're getting in the character. You're letting
yeah,
what's going on internally dictate how
yeah.
you feel a moment. It's just it was
We should talk once you've watched Ozark because I do a bunch of it in Ozark. So you'll
oh, you
see
do?
it
Okay.
specifically in some of my episodes. I do a bunch of the some really interesting stylistic cutting too. So you'll see some stuff.
Okay, well, I will definitely, first I'll try to convince my son. He's 15, so we'll see what his tastes are.
Yeah.
But I'll sell it hard because I think he's also, we watched he's a big Jason Bateman fan
Right.
from Arrested Development. So I think that might be like, if you want a different side and you don't want
Mhm.
something so far afield it sounds like it's like a little bit of Better Call and Breaking Bad in one thing, right?
That's right. Yeah. Totally.
So
Yeah.
there you go. I only
It's
did this
totally
interview
that.
so that you could affirm me and tell me how shitty I
And
am.
Laura's fun. I mean, husband and wife, Jason and Laura, are just fantastic in it. They're
Okay.
fantastic. But the world is really interesting, and it's a show with dark humor, just in many ways like Black Rabbit,
Mm,
but it's a serious drama, and it's slow. It's a slow burn.
mm.
But I thoroughly enjoyed working on that series too. I mean, I think I edited 20 out of the 44 episodes. So I had a large, role in that. And it was great working with Jason and Chris Mundy on that. And then the other editors as well.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. I will let you get back to your busy day, which I'm sure you're having, and taking your time out to talk to me. And
I appreciate the
um,
talk. Thank you so much.
everybody out there, get to Black Rabbit. You will not regret it.
Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. And thank you for the time.